If you're bass fishing nowadays and don't use a stick bait, like the Zoom Fluke Stick and Fluke Stick Junior, you're messing up. I won 80% of the money I won this year on a Zoom Fluke Stick. The reason it's such an awesome bait is because there's countless ways to rig it. It's one of those baits that you can use 12 months a year, and there's just so many different ways to rig it, whether you want it, up shallow, you want to fish it out deep, fishing for smallmouth, spots, largemouth. It's probably one of the most effective baits to do anything with. You can rig it so many different ways. So when it comes to rigging a fluke stick, I would say a wacky rig is the number 1 way that I rig it. Is just I use a weed guard hook most of the time, but just a small, 1/0 weed guard hook, hooked right in the middle, like you don't know what you're doing. That's the key to wacky rigging, is hook it right in the middle. A lot of people use O-rings and bands. I personally don't like an O-ring. I like to just hook the bait right through the middle because it always stays in the same position, and you don't have the double back where it hooks itself near as much. But this is the way I rig a wacky rig, but there's a lot of ways to rig it that you may not have thought about for a fluke stick, or just other ways to use it. The Fluke Stick and Fluke Stick Junior is actually a great bait. This stick bait is really good on a jig head too. I like to put it on just a plain old shaky head. You know how much I love shaky heads, and it's a really good bait if you want like a bigger presentation. A trick worm or a finesse worm just sometimes doesn't have enough meat to it. So if you put a Fluke Stick or Fluke Stick Junior on a shaky head, it's a little bit bigger profile bait, a little more power fishing. I'll throw it on a bait caster a lot because they're a little bit harder to hook because it's a meatier bait, but it's a real effective bait on a shaky head. So an adaptation to the wacky rig is sometimes when you're throwing that wacky rig, it just doesn't get quite down there enough. Maybe some spotted bass lakes, they might be suspended under deeper docks or something like that, but you just want to get down a little bit faster. That's when a nail weight comes in really, really effective. This is called a Nico rig, but you still, same wacky rig presentation, you just add a nail weight to the head of this bait. So a small little, 1/16 ounce or less nail weight, put it in the head, and what that'll do is rather than that straight fall like a wacky rig, it'll actually get kind of a pointy fall. It'll fall a lot faster because it'll fall nose down rather than perfectly horizontal. And then the stick bait, also, it's a staple in Florida on a lot of grass lakes. Well, sometimes the wacky rig, even with the weed guard, can be a little frustrating in all that grass, and generally that smaller hook also can be a pain in the grass on spinning gear. But if you want to throw it on a bait caster, some bigger gear, just a normal 3/0 worm hook, you can rig it Texas rig style and just hook it right through the nose, hook it typical Texas rig, and fish it weightless just like that. It can be real effective. I use it a lot when I'm fishing around cypress trees, or maybe I'm around, lily pads, just some type of thick cover where you want a little bigger line, want a little bigger gear to be able to get fish out of it. And then when it comes to Texas rigging, it's also a great bait just with a actual Texas rig weight. Stick bait, it's an easy bait to pitch, in some sparse vegetation, or pitch under docks. It shoots through really effectively. You can use a light weight and still get that kind of shoot through fall. Like a 1/4 ounce weight on a stick bait will fall a lot faster than a 1/4 ounce weight on your creature bait, something like that. So you can get kind of a quick pitching presentation with not as heavy of a weight on a stick bait. And when it comes to Texas rigging it, there's another way with the Texas rig style hook, just the typical worm hook. It's a really, really good Carolina rig bait. Stick baits have been kind of one of my go-tos for smallmouth or out deep fish when I'm throwing a Carolina rig. I don't Carolina rig a ton, but a stick bait is a really, really good bait for a Carolina rig because it's just kind of a do-nothing presentation. Back a long time ago, we used a centipede French fry bait a lot. Well, I don't carry a lot of those in the boat more, but I always have plenty of stick baits, plenty of Fluke Sticks and Fluke Sticks Junior, and that's a really, really good Carolina rig bait. A stick bait is probably the most versatile bait in the entire boat as far as different ways to rig it, different places to fish it, and it'll catch all species of bass almost 12 months of the year.